Well, I want to read about Bill, because you write about Bill in your book, Building a Resilient Life, this section, and shift the narrative, that rule. And you have a chapter called Preach to Yourself. And Bill was just the example of somebody who was walking through pain, but never stopped preaching to himself. He had been diagnosed with metastatic bone cancer 4 years earlier, which he was fighting valiantly through exploratory treatments at MD Anderson with a grateful smile and inspiring faith. But last fall, the narrative shifted. The doctors told Bill he only had one more Christmas, and so he needed to prepare for a decline until his last days. While he knew the end was inevitable, this news provoked a languishing in his spirit, a sadness that overcame him. It took him a few days to identify the source, and then he had an epiphany. I need to shift the narrative. While the doctor's prognosis that fall was meant to help them prepare to end well, it also shifted the way Bill saw his cancer. I realized I went from fighting to live to preparing to die, he said. And God can't transform a dead sacrifice. He asks us to present our bodies as a living sacrifice. Bill decided that while he had no idea when his last day on earth would come, he would continue to be a living sacrifice for God and would take and use each moment in whatever way God saw fit. He would wake up every morning prepared to live with breath in his lungs, and in a moment when no one else's words could bring clarity, he began to preach to himself. I want you to continue that story. So this last year, he started to live again. Like, it was like, talk a little bit about what this last year started to look like.
Well, that was actually a Christmas a year ago, and he made a decision that he was going to live fully. And even he grew in that to understand that cancer was his calling. And he began to live in that and find joy in his calling, to the point where 10 days before he went to be with Jesus, he did a podcast. Weeks before that, he was meeting with pastors in the area to encourage them, to say, how are you doing? How's your relationship with Jesus? He just continued. He could barely walk. He was 117 pounds, couldn't eat a whole lot. But he was determined to the point where the last week, he was only in a hospital bed for 3 days, which was very unusual, but a place that we had asked God for mercy in it. He had, I can't tell you how many needles he had in his arms, how many blood transfusions, how much pain he had to go through. And the times that we would, he would just step right into it. And he would continue to greet every nurse, every doctor. He would find out their name. He would find out about them, about their life. And I would be sitting there. Blood could be spurting out of his arm, and he's still loving the people around him.
Yeah. That's crazy.
I know.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when you made that decision of shifting the narrative, and that's honestly, that's kind of what inspired me around that rule, because it's so powerful. You get to decide what you say to yourself.
That's right.
This idea that that while the doctor says one thing and that may or may not be true, you get to still respond in Christ.